Hi, it's Mike Reese. I've been writing for The Simpsons for 30 years. I ran the show in seasons 3 and 4. I created The Critic. And now I've written a book. It's called Springfield Confidential, and it is the first insider's look at The Simpsons. It's filled with secrets, scandals, and tales of censorship and celebrities. It's a great book. It's like a Simpsons episode. It's fast, it's smart, and it's packed with hundreds of jokes, some of them funny. Please buy Springfield Confidential. You can order it now on Amazon.com.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today we have a family feud of sorts to talk about. But before we get to that, let's introduce my family and your co-host with the most, Richie theWizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
I feel the need to dance.
Is it taking over your body? Joy rising.
The old ballot is getting into my heart here.
Somebody was late for gym class signups.
We might have touched on this briefly before we got on. Not that we ever pregame before getting on the show here. But so you'll end up saying it, so I might as well say it. I forgot about the B plot that it was part of this individual episode, so it was real interesting, and it made a lot more sense seeing it now of why this is the episode that it was on. But we'll get into that momentarily. For now, I need to throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Sergeant Pepper that's growing out of your back. It is Miles.
We'll go ahead and say we are talking about Homer vs. Patty and Selma today, which originally aired on February 26, 1995. And yeah, the B-plot, A-plot connection here is strange, and it's also something that happens every now and again with The Simpsons, where the B-plot actually seems a little bit more of a focus in a lot of ways than the A-plot does, and a part of that is just because the A-plot is fairly cut and dry, where the B-plot is a little bit more out there. It's not like out of space out there, but it's not your normal everyday sort of deal like borrowing money might be.
Well, I also feel like they didn't want to overdo the Patty and Selma making Homer their quote-unquote dog. Like, there's only so much of that you can see before it's just like, okay, come on. So I think they did a very good job about doing it and making you feel really, really bad for Homer, but not overdoing it.
Well, I mean, you can't spell obsequious without IOU, Richie.
I don't know. Marge is the better one about spelling. We should ask her.
I'll have to trust you on that one. Well, let's get into this episode. We do start out with a chalk gag, which is, I will remember to take my medication.
I hope I do.
And we also get a couch gag that I know all the Trekkies out there absolutely love. We see the Simpsons beamed in, Scotty, right onto their couch, which the animators...
Like a cat, didn't it?
That did sound kind of cat-like, but from the director's commentary, we had David Silverman, the supervising director, Mark Kirkland, the director of this episode, David Merkin, and Matt Groening. And I think it was Mark Kirkland who pointed out, or possibly David Silverman, that they love that couch gag because it's actually really, really easy to animate. There's not a lot of movement.
And it plays well with the audience.
Always goes over well. Goes over about as well as Pumpkins in October, Ridge, and Homer is playing the market. He is riding this pumpkin craze. It's been skyrocketing all month, and he predicts that they are going to peak in January.
And that's when he'll cash in.
I love this whole opening sequence. First of all, you just start with all we see is Homer and all the barflies just smoking cigars. I love Moe's line, this place is gonna smell classy all week.
To Homer, the Wall Street genius.
We see Homer actually lighting his cigar with a $1 bill, but then he immediately extinguishes it and puts it back in his wallet.
I like when they actually start asking me, Homer, what's your secret investment?
Take a guess.
Pumpkins?
Yeah, that's right, Barney. This year I invested in pumpkins. They've been going up this whole month of October, and I got a feeling they're gonna peak right around January. Then bang! That's when I'll cash in.
To Homer and to Sergeant Pepper, who's growing out of the middle of your back.
Barn, you gotta unwrap the plastic before you smoke those.
I love that, like, Homer's like, you're never gonna guess what I invested in, and Barney drunkenly just goes, pumpkins?
Pumpkins? Yeah. Well, and to be fair, though, there is a Happy Halloween sign directly above Homer's head that actually has a picture of a jack-o'-lantern on it. So maybe he was just kind of looking around the room and looking for inspiration. I love that Homer's oblivious to this holiday, it seems.
Yeah, wait until January. You'll do fine, Homer.
Well, and it's right after this that we see Homer having a meeting with his broker. I love that on the door of his broker's office, it says, "Our commissions offset your losses." Don't know how that works, but that's fucking awesome.
Homer, you knucklebeak. I told you 100 times. You gotta sell your pumpkin futures before Halloween. Before!
Alright, let's not panic. I'll make the money back by selling one of my livers. I can get by with just one. Good plan, good plan. We should look into that, actually.
Uh-oh.
You okay?
I meant about the liver part.
Okay. I was convinced it was our technical difficulties that we were having before. My bad. Long story short here, we find out that Homer is broke, and he's really worried about having to break it to Marge. He's looking for a miracle, and then he sees one as he approaches his house, and there's smoke coming from under the door. My house is on fire! Woohoo! Insurance to the rescue! Unfortunately for Homer, however, we find out that it is just, in fact, his sister-in-laws, Patty and Selma, who have come by for a visit.
Hello, Homer.
Marge, we had a deal. Your sisters don't come here after 6 and I stop eating your lipstick. And we see him turn around where we can kind of see his teeth, and he's rubbing his finger, getting the red off of them.
This is a special occasion. Patty and Selma just got promoted at the DMV.
Oh, and Selma's got the sick burn here. Yeah, Homer. Let your wife have a glimpse of success for once.
All right, that's the last straw. Time to take out the trash. But first, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I love this bit, too, because as Homer's saying this line, it very clearly looks like he's about to toss Patty and Selma out physically, but then he actually is just like, oh, after I get you to leave, he actually take the trash out. It's pretty funny. But it actually does end up with Homer quite literally throwing the sisters out in the lawn. He actually shoves the couch out the door that they were sitting on and then just tilts them right off. Marge is mortified. She's apologizing for Homer's rude behavior and trying to justify it by saying he's not trying to be rude, he's just a very complicated man. And almost immediately we see Homer's head pop out of the window.
Wrong smash!
Well, in typical Patty and Selma fashion, they're trying to tell Marge that she's too good for Homer. I actually really love the line where she says, you got some kids out of them, but when the seeds have been planted, you throw away the envelope. Rough.
I wish you wouldn't put Homer down like that. He may not be a big success like you, but I can always count on him to provide for the family.
Which are just the words that Homer fears most in this moment. He's sort of eavesdropping from the window, and when he hears this, he immediately starts to panic. He's out of money, so he's worried about letting her down, and he vows that he's gonna get some money somehow. We see him pick up the phone. Hello? Vegas? Give me $100 on red. Don't! Alright, I'll send you a check.
Who's this Vegas guy?
How do you just answer the phone, or when you just talk back with the phone, hello, Vegas? Like, that's not a person you talk to.
And my guidebook pointed this out, but I want to go ahead and throw it out there in this moment. He never gives them his name, so how do they know who owes him the money?
Yeah, there's so much wrong with this. I mean, there's quite a bit here that could definitely not work out well.
And aren't you just supposed to do $5 on red when you first get to Vegas, Miles, or is it 20? I forget.
It's 5 for the first bet, man.
The rules of Entourage, Homer. That's what you got to follow.
The show that came out 20 years after this episode aired, but it's fine. So Homer is in bed, and you can see the wheels are churning. He's got his pencil and paper in tow. He's got his thinking glasses on, and he's thinking hard, trying to come up with an invention. Something that would really make money. Must concentrate and work harder than I've ever... And I love that we actually see Homer's dream, and we're at a conference table where Homer is basically being congratulated for whatever he's done.
Congratulations, Mr. Simpson. This invention of yours has made us all rich, especially you. It's simple, yet ingenious, and it fits right in the palm of your hand. Every person in America now owns one of these, and in many cases, 3 or 4.
Homer is desperately trying to figure out what is in this man's palm because he very much wants to take it back and actually make it. He's reaching for it. He's trying to get a peek and even says, could I just get a look at that?
Why would you need to see it? You're the genius that invented the product in question.
But, could I just...
Now don't worry. You'll get to see it just as soon as we unveil our new ad campaign.
And we see the screen starts to project the advertisement for this mystery project, but everybody at the table stands up and Homer now cannot see. He's desperately begging for people to get out of his way so he can get a glimpse at what's happening. And it's just then that Marge appears in his dream and actually wakes Homer up.
To be fair, you do kind of see the invention. It looks like some kind of joy buzzer insulin giver kind of thing. I don't know.
Uh-oh, I can't believe they invented it. Well, Marge has actually brought Homer out of this dream, and he accidentally says the line, "Oh, my invention! All our money problems could have been..." And
no, the thing before that, though, Marge wakes him up and says, Homer, Homer, wake up. There's still a few minutes till our usual bedtime. So if she would have left him asleep, he would have seen the invention.
It probably would have been blocked anyway. You know that. But yeah, Homer accidentally blurts out, "All our money problems could have been," and he pauses.
Money problems? Homer, are we in some sort of fiduciary trouble?
And I do want to point out the use of the word fiduciary was brought up in the writer's room because, simply put, they knew that Julie Kavner saying the word fiduciary as Marge would be hilarious. And they were right. Homer starts to imagine his wife as a queen in this moment, and he's very upset that he cannot provide for his kingdom. Lisa walks up, and all he sees is her little princess. And of course, who could forget dear Rat Boy?
Rat Boy? I resent that.
And we see Bart choose the scenery a bit here in this scene.
And he's actually doing it because Marge tells him to stop gnawing on the drywall.
Yeah.
It turns back into Bart, and he's actually still doing it. Honestly, I can understand why Homer doesn't tell her in this instance. Like, I get it. They did this in a very clever way where, like, he treats his family like they're royalty, except Bart, and he wants to be the big provider, and I really get all the feeling behind this moment, but I still can't quite get over the fact that he doesn't tell her there.
This seems like the moment that you could definitely lay it out on the line before it's too late, and you'd be forgiven for keeping it to yourself at this point because of the social pressures you just mentioned, but you would also not have waited so long that it's going to be quite literally lit up on the wall for someone to find out about later.
But at the same time, when she finds out you blew all your money on pumpkins that you didn't let sell by the end of October, you might be in a little more trouble.
I mean, the stock market's a tricky place, Richie. You can't be mad at somebody for, holding on to the stock just a little too long. How do we know it wasn't going to blow up with the traditional New Year's pumpkins?
Mushkins?
So this is actually where we take a break from our Simpsons money problems and we kick off the beginning of the B plot when we see Bart and Milhouse walking to school.
What a day, eh, Milhouse? The sun is out, birds are singing, bees are trying to have sex with them, as is my understanding.
I don't know if it'll hold, but this is an early contender for one of the better jokes in this episode. I love this line. And Milhouse couldn't agree more. It's a gorgeously fabulous day. Marvelous, even.
So, What's your hurry to get to school?
And we see both boys essentially start to kind of challenge each other to a game of chicken, where they walk slower and slower and they take their time, but Milhouse is very clearly uncomfortable with this. He's trying to play it cool and act tough in front of Bart, but almost instantly he's like, alright, enough playing around, we really have to get to school. And this whole sequence actually comes from a real life story from David Merkin's childhood, where they basically did just this. A friend of his and a friend of his were walking to school one day, and they basically were daring each other to walk slower and slower. They ended up being very, very late, and while they did not end up having to take ballet classes, they did get in quite a bit of trouble for their long adventure to school. Unfortunately, while the kids are having all this fun being truant, they'll say, we actually see that they picked the very most wrong day to do this, because it's the day that they are signing up for their gym class activities, and it's first come, first serve. However, Skinner still encourages them all to be adults about the situation and calmly and orderly walk to the gym. But of course, that doesn't happen. It's a mob scene, and poor Willie just gets trampled, desperately clutching to the pipes above the hallway.
Ah! Too many wee ones!
We cut to the gymnasium, and we can see that it's already a madhouse. One of the students even says, this gets uglier and uglier every year. Any signs of Bart and Milhouse?
No, and if they don't get here soon, it'll be TS for them.
And we see Ralph Wiggum tethered to a pole in a swimming pool, where we see TS stands for tethered swimming.
I don't feel right. Like, why was he already in tethered swimming that year, though? Like, that was supposed to be the last case scenario.
That was
Ralph
like
already
case.
signed up for it
TS
and already started the class.
And to be fair, I think Bart, at the beginning of this episode, would have chose TS over Ballot, as you will find out he comes to find here soon. But for now, that's...
Well, if we had Dr. Andrew Briseno here with us, he could discuss how Ralph talks about not feeling right and how commonplace that is in regular society, normal society. What word am I trying to sound smart with?
And how we're really all tethered swimming in this life.
Exactly. Good job, Ralph.
As Milhouse and Bart are walking very slowly, and again, Milhouse is freaking out at this point about being truant, they actually hear the bell ring, and Milhouse ditches Bart, but Bart's fine with it. Who needs him? I can have fun all by myself. And we see him kind of make a puppet show out of his hands, where he's just talking to himself. This is actually a reference. He just keeps saying, so right, so right.
Sarai, 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 sarai.
Well, this is actually a reference that even at the time it aired, David Merkin said he would be surprised if anyone got it, but it was to a Spanish ventriloquist by the name of Senor Wences, who did this. This was an homage to one of his famous acts.
You can YouTube it now, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Google it, and you'll find all the information you need about Senor Wences.
And it'll be Sarait.
Sarait. We take a break from Bart's truancy for a moment to get back with Homer, who is at Moe's trying to figure out his problems, and he's actually asking Moe for a loan.
Sure, Homer. I can loan you all the money you need. However, since you have no collateral, I'm going to have to break your legs in advance.
Gosh, Moe, I use these all the time. Couldn't you just bash my head in?
Hey, are you a loan shark? Do you understand how finance works?
He grabs a sledgehammer.
Now, let's do this thing. Which, does Homer have an inkling that he's unbreakable in that moment?
I mean, he's worried about his legs, though. I mean, he knows his head. Maybe it's only his head is unbreakable. Maybe we have our theory slightly off.
No, I think it's just the fact that he's making a joke that he never uses his head. He uses his legs all the time.
All the time, yeah. Well, I just love that Moe's trying to explain finances to Homer, and it's if you don't have collateral, we break shit in advance. That's how that works. Worst loan shark ever.
That is the way of the world, Miles.
That's true. Nothing's free in this life, kids. We do not get to actually witness the carnage as Homer is making a deal with Moe, but we do see Bart realizes his mistake when he walks into his school very, very late and declares, "Oh no, it's PE sign-up day."
How could you forget? They had signs posted all over the library.
I love that so much. Just only Lisa would actually know about that because of the library. I also like that it seems like she's still very much enjoying hockey from the episode
I
Lisa on
that
Ice.
Too.
Absolutely. Out. Bart's warned by Milhouse he better sign up for something fast because everything is filling out. And Bart starts to run around frantically. But even things like running laps and pull-ups and gender issues in sports is full. In fact, when he runs into Skinner, he's told, there's only one class left, but it happens to be the coolest one of all.
Ballet? Dancing is for girls.
Well, you should have gotten here earlier. I love how vengeful Skinner is in this moment. I mean, he's like very menacing when he delivers these lines to Bart.
Well, I mean, the last time they interacted, Bart stole a telescope and discovered a comet heading for Earth, so...
True, there's a lot of things to be resentful over here.
What I really enjoy is the one that filled up before Ballet, which was gender issues in sports, which is literally what this episode is about in a different way. So I thought that was really funny that like Bart could have been talking about what he's literally about to do physically.
That is really funny, and I didn't think about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. We're kind of doing a little bit of flip-flopping back and forth here between the male side of the Simpsons family. We have Homer having his money issues, and now Bart having his ballet issues. But the next thing we see is actually Homer downright begging the First Bank of Springfield for an extension on the mortgage payments.
I understand that you need another extension, Mr. Simpson, but according to our computer, your credit history is not good. It says here that you've been pre-declined for every major credit card. It also says that you once grabbed a dog by the hind legs and pushed him around like a vacuum cleaner.
Hey, that was in the 3rd grade.
Yeah, well, it all goes on your permanent record. I'm sorry, but if you don't come up with that money by tomorrow, the bank is going to take your house.
Well, good luck finding it, because I'm going to take the numbers off tonight.
Well, we'll look for the house with no numbers.
Then I'll take the numbers off of my neighbor's house.
So, well then we'll look for the house next to the house with no numbers.
Alright, you'll get your money.
Well played, sir.
I love all of this interaction, but I think my absolute favorite part, and I'm allowed to laugh at this because I once too was also pre-declined for every credit card at one point in my life, but the idea of being pre-declined, it just cracks me up, especially with how aggressive credit card companies were, especially at this time in the mid to late 90s, even through the 2000s, as we well know, they'd give credit cards out to just about anyone.
Yep.
Man, those were the times.
How do you pay off an old credit card, Miles?
By destroying it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say by getting a new one.
No, yeah, that too.
That's why I have a tattoo, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Miles.
You don't regret it at all.
I always forget I have it.
What the hell is that?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, Homer has hit rock bottom. He's out of options. In fact, by his own declaration, we see him, we're not sure where just yet, but he's very pathetically saying, "This is my last chance. Bottom of the barrel. Hail Mary long shot. Wish you would do it, but probably won't. Final resort to lend me money."
We'll take care of you.
Yes, care. Patty and Selma actually stop laughing here, but Homer just keeps going on more and more maniacally. Finally, Patty and Selma can't even take it. Cut him a check and get the hell out of here.
I actually enjoy that moment.
Oh, it's great. It's very reminiscent, and they talk about this even in the commentary, but I immediately felt a connection to Sideshow Bob and the same type of thing he does on a lot of episodes, where the laugh just keeps going and going and going. But this is so funny because Homer has no idea what they're laughing at. He's not aware, even remotely, the type of twisted things that they're going to put him through, like having to go through Bunyan country. But he just is laughing harder than anyone in the room, and it actually annoys Patty and Selma, which is funny.
Literally, they're finding joy in like harassing him, but he immediately sucks all the joy out of it.
Yeah.
As only Homer could do.
And that's actually going to do it for Act 1, so somebody cut us a check so we can get the hell out of here for a quick break, but we'll be right back after we hear from some buddies of ours.
Good evening, future passengers. Are you ready to sit back, relax, and join us on a ride of epic proportions through the mystical land of randomness?
Am I a serial killer if I eat Lucky Charms?
What would it be like if horror characters ran a gym? Who would run spin class?
When a shark jumps out of the water, is it like suffocating for that split second?
So join us every week for a brand new Derailment with Goobs, Ripkin, and Jenny Bean.
You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Derailers.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and also on YouTube. Have a great night or day, folks.
Testing. Can anyone hear me? My name is Toby, and I'm the host of the Secret Transmission Podcast. We are a show that discusses the paranormal, conspiracies, the supernatural, UFOs, cryptozoology, and anything else weird. Our show is transmitted to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter for updates at Secret Transpod. So get ready to put on your tinfoil hats and come learn with us as we try to explain the unexplainable.
We come back from our break and find everything is going great for Homer. He is at the dinner table, and what a wonderful dinner it is. What a beautiful family. Someone get a picture of me with my arm around this steak.
You're certainly in a good mood tonight, Dad.
And Homer explains that he managed to solve a little problem today, so it's time to celebrate. And what better way to celebrate than sitting back leaning in your chair? Slanty.
You know, in a few seasons here, he'll have those little extra legs in the back of his chair that he invents.
The invention. This could be the thing that was fitting in the palm of his hand earlier. It all connects.
Yeah.
That's just a tiny little hinge is all he needed.
Yep.
But unfortunately, this nice, relaxing moment of triumph and celebration is interrupted by a grumbling.
Patty, Selma, what are you doing here?
We thought we'd stop by unexpectedly for dinner.
Now, bring us some extra chairs like a good blubber-in-law.
Time to fertilize the lawn. A couple of 500-pound bags should do it.
He puts them both in like a headlock.
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty violent scene, and David Merkin even said that even by 2005 standards, when the DVD commentary was made, this probably would not have actually made it on television.
Homer, be careful of my sister's heads. Their necks are brittle.
That's okay, Marge. Nothing's broke. Except Homer.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means
these two fabulous babes are staying for dinner.
And we see Homer is actually now holding Patty and Selma's faces in his armpit, and Selma's line here is great. They're gasping for air and saying, "Oh, that's a stink I could have done without." And then we cut to a scene where Homer is very, very literally holding a smile on his face. It's actually really funny animation because he's just got this frozen giant grin, almost as if he was like the victim of the Joker from the 1989 Batman movie, where it's just stuck, painted on.
Like when Sheldon tries to put a smile on his face?
Yeah, very similar to that too, absolutely. But Marge is actually really happy. It seems that Homer and her sisters are getting along for once, and with such a peaceful dinner, she wants to celebrate with the most international coffee in the house. Montreal Morn.
It's Canadian, people.
Homer takes this moment to try to get rid of Patty and Selma. He's like, alright, you've had your fun, now get on out. But Patty and Selma explain that no, the fun hasn't even begun yet.
Huh?
They have actually made an IOU, and it's got Homer owes IOU for one mortgage payment to Patty and Selma, and they're holding it over his head because they know he doesn't want to tell Marge. And just then, Marge actually returns, apologizing because all they had was Nescafe.
Aww.
She's very, very sorry. That's okay, because Patty explains to Marge that she's just in time. It's actually Homer's getting ready to give them both a foot rub.
You are?
No! I'm giving them a foot massage. At least let me have that.
You can start with the corns.
Then you can move on to Bunyan Country. This is downright evil. But Homer's taking it like a man, something he'll probably never be able to get out of his head when he's trying to fall asleep at night. He'll be haunted by this moment. Yes, there's not enough hand soap. And his son is also going through a trial at this moment. They're both in moments of great trepidation. In this case, Bart is actually approaching the ballet room. He's talking to himself, trying to basically give him a little pep talk. Taking ballet doesn't make you any less of a man, until he opens the doors and all of the girls point and laugh.
All right, girls. Today we have the dance of the fairy queens. You can either be a fairy or a queen. It's wide open. And what have we here? A young man who thinks maybe he can be the next Baryshnikov?
And let's point out real quick that this teacher of the ballet is voiced by none other than Susan Sarandon. Her image is actually drawn not to completely look like Susan Sarandon, but very similar to when they had Anne Bancroft on for Fear of Flying. They just changed or, added some subtle little tweaks to the animation to give it a little bit more of a Susan Sarandon appearance. I'll also point out that Susan Sarandon is another one of the many Simpsons guest stars who did this show not because they were a fan themselves, but because they had kids that watched the show. And their kids were so in love with the show, they wanted to take the opportunity to essentially impress them, it seems. In fact, Susan Sarandon even brought her kids with her when she did her recording session, which was an absolute thrill because they were just so excited to see everyone.
And I know this is going to sound really, really bad, but her daughter, who actually played a younger version of her in that one Adam Sandler movie recently, she gets quite hot when she gets older. But for me personally, being a kid, getting to go see The Simpsons being made and actually watching somebody record something, that would have been like the dream. That must have been so cool.
That would have been really, really cool. And Susan Sarandon does a really great job here. I actually have a story about her recording session we'll talk about in a little while, but she just delivers a great performance, does a much better Russian accent than you do, or myself, of course. I'm sure
I honestly forgot which dialect it was before I started doing it, and I was like, just talk somehow, some way.
Yeah, it's fine.
I honestly wanted to also point out, I didn't remember that it was Sarandon at all. When I was watching the episode, I was looking and I was like, oh yeah, that's Susan Sarandon. And I went, I honestly don't remember her being in this episode.
And also alongside another great guest star that we'll meet later, which is just so crazy that they had two huge names in this episode.
Absolutely.
But for now, Bart is very much not for this ballet gimmick. In fact, he straight up tells her that he's forced to be here. And he even says, look, Boris, I think ballet's for sissies.
Ballet is for the strong, the fierce, the determined. But for the sissies, never. Now put on this fuchitard, you are a fairy.
I love that. He can either be a queen or a fairy, but it's definitely not a sissy. It's fine. We cut back to our other plot. I almost said B plot, and that's just because of how strong this B plot is, but it's actually the A plot where we see Homer still struggling with his money problems.
Miles, I have an admission.
Okay.
I was once a fairy in a school play.
Yes,
in Midsummer Night's Dream, excuse me. I got to be a fairy, and I had to do all my own. We had to draw vines on our faces with makeup, and I did it every single performance. And I got to do, back in my more spry day, where I was a little skinnier, we got to do a lot of cartwheels and shit on stage. And I did them all very well, thank you very much.
So it was the one performance that you didn't play a sissy. Good for you.
Thank you. It was actually quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a good time, man. So we cut back to our A plot with Homer, and I actually almost called the A plot the B plot there, just because that's how strong the B plot is. But the A plot is actually Homer dealing with these money problems. And we see Lenny and Carl talking to him at work, and actually, something about this line really threw me off. It's Carl saying, "Let's go, Homer. On the way home, we're stopping at Moe's for a Zima?"
Yeah,
Moe's sells Zima? What?
I literally wrote down, drinking a Zima? Really, Lenny and Carl?
Homer's so distraught about his sister-in-law is taking over his house, so he's actually considering just staying at work overtime.
What? Homer, quit wallowing in self-pity. Pull yourself together and come get drunk with us.
Bart is still also struggling quite physically in this example, actually. He hates wearing tights, and he's actually trying to rip them off. But the teacher is explaining, many of your heroes wear tights. Batman, for example. Magellan.
Look, I don't like this cootie platoon, and I never will. I'm out of here, and I'm out of this stupid outfit.
And Bart is kind of walking around, pulling at the elastic of his tights, trying to struggle them off, and something kind of weird happens as his motions start to become more and more rhythmic.
Wait! Joy of movement increasing! Love of dance impossible to resist! Toes twinkling. Look at me, girls! I'm doing ballet, and I love it!
What a change! Who saw that coming? Things are not turning around just yet back at the Simpsons' home. Homer is still under Patty and Selma's thumb. He walks into a room where they're sitting on his couch watching his TV, and all Homer gets
and smoking.
And smoking. And all Homer gets in return is, am I wrong, or did it just get fatter in here? This poor guy, he actually has to request permission to slink by? Really? And he doesn't even get it. Permission pending is all he receives.
He did not get it.
Yeah, permission pending. First, he has to light their cigarettes.
But you're already smoking, sick.
They actually just put their cigarettes out in that moment, and they they pull out fresh ones to be lit.
You're really pushing it.
And I actually really love this line. Come on, Homer. You can't spell obsequious without I-O-U.
I'll have to trust you on that.
This is where we get the bit we did earlier. They start to threaten, Marge is a good speller. We could ask her. Homer is, of course, no, please, not that. But the requests start to get even more ridiculous in this moment when they say, tut, just for that, you're gonna have to crawl around on the floor like the dog you are. And even worse, Homer just sort of stammers.
Yes, ma'am.
Now say, I'm Homer Simpson, the lowly dog, in a dog's voice.
I am Homer Simpson.
Good. Jump, Homer, jump! And this is when Marge walks in, which, one of the most awkward things you could walk in on your spouse doing, I would say. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't worse things, but this definitely has to be at the top of the list when your sisters are making your husband run around on the floor like a dog. And of course, Homer, still in his dog voice, is trying to deny everything. What's going on in here?
Absolutely nothing, Marge.
Marge is suspicious because she actually sees the IOU and she's like, what's that paper? But unfortunately, when Homer reaches for it, the most unfortunate thing happens. But I love this whole sequence animation-wise. The IOU floats through the air and comes down to a perfect landing right on top of the lamp, where the image that's written on the paper, or the words, the IOU in this case, is actually illuminated directly onto the ceiling for everyone, including Marge, to see.
Homer, is this projection accurate? Did you borrow money from my sisters?
I don't know, Marge. I can't be expected to keep track of all my wheelings and dealings.
He blew all your savings on jack-o'-lanterns.
You told! And we see Homer absolutely lose it. He actually physically tosses Patty out of the house, and then he accidentally tosses Marge out of the house, but immediately realizes it. Oops, sorry, Marge! And he runs out, grabs her, brings her in before tossing Selma out of the house. Again, this whole sequence is wonderful. I love the line, "Is this projection accurate?" It's so weird, but another thing that just Marge delivers in such a funny way. And this whole reveal, I think, is just really well done.
Well, what I enjoy is when Homer's lighting their new cigarettes on the couch, he actually tries to light the piece of paper on fire, too.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what gets him in trouble.
Yeah, that's right.
I very much enjoy the line that Homer gives Patty and Selma. The camera's outside behind Patty and Selma looking in towards Homer at the front door. And that's when he says, "I never want to see you again. You either." And that just cracked me up.
Oh, and Marge is just, "Homer, why didn't you tell me?"
"I was ashamed, Marge. I failed you as a husband and a provider. And at best, I was a B-plus dog. I'll understand if you want to sleep on the couch tonight," as he slowly walks up the stairs.
Homer heads to the bedroom and is like, "I understand if you want to sleep on the couch." What a fun twist on that classic sitcom situation, which I'll point out here too real quick from the director's commentary before we take another break and come back again for our third act in just a few moments. But David Merkin points out that this is another one of those episodes that just feels very sitcom-y, and in a lot of ways is a lot more grounded than a lot of the Simpsons episodes usually are.
Yeah, absolutely. You can totally see that.
But it's a nice, fun
It's a very
change of
real
pace.
sitcom-y storyline. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does. It makes a great sitcom storyline. You could see this being done in live action. But for now, we're going to go ahead and take another break. We'll be right back for the conclusion of Homer versus Patty and Selma.
It's a three-way match.
Ding, ding, ding.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to bestdarndiddly at patreon.com. So they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh. I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud.
We start the third act with a really fun juxtaposition from where we were at the start of the second act, because we're at the same breakfast table, but instead of Homer celebrating and being happy, he's actually downright depressed, and he's actually sitting underneath the table, because after all, a man so deeply in debt doesn't deserve breakfast.
But I like to make you breakfast.
Oh, well in that case I'll just have French toast, with double butter, and a side of bacon. But no powdered sugar. I don't deserve it. Well, maybe a little powdered sugar.
Honestly, you gotta give props to Marge in this, because, like, she hasn't shown any anger at all. Like, she's just more upset that he didn't tell her immediately, but, like, even that she's not angry about.
Yeah, Marge is once again proving to be the ultimate wife in so many situations. She's definitely probably the most patient wife. I mean, but you're right. She appreciates and loves Homer for being a provider, but I don't think that she considers him a failure for missing 1 month or, having a little bit of struggles nearly as much as Homer is blaming himself for this very situation.
We try to point out that each of the Simpsons family members has some kind of power or ability. Maybe Marge is that she's always on drugs. And like the few episodes where she lashes out are when she hasn't had drugs in a while.
Well, remember there's actually that episode where we see her in the kitchen, where we see her perspective and everything is downright zany because I think there was acid in the water or something of that nature.
Yep, and maybe that got her hooked on drugs.
Maybe, could be. That's funny.
We'll have to keep an eye on that one.
I don't know if it's a superpower to always be on drugs, but it's one I would consider taking.
She's not dead yet!
Very true, very true. She keeps on ticking. Oh, that goes back to the whole bunny ears theory, too.
There you go,
Whoa,
see?
This just got deep, folks. X-Files shit right here. For now, though, back in the ballet class, everything is going really well for Bart, and he's actually getting really good at ballet. He's going for moves that are more challenging, and he's landing them, and the teacher is impressed. Bravissimo, Bart! Next week, class gives its first recital, and you will dance the male lead.
Dance in front of the whole school? What is it with you and ballet?
I know you have great conflict, Bart. You love ballet, yet you fear the boys will laugh at you, no?
No, I fear the girls will laugh at me. I fear the boys will beat the living snot out of me.
And you know, maybe Bart's onto something with that one, as we're going to come to find out. That might not be an irrational fear, after all.
Did you notice in that scene when it first cut to him that he's drinking a tab?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So perfect for the ballet scene in the 90s.
Well, so we've had a Zima ad and a tab ad in this episode. What's going on, Simpsons?
It's the ballet. It's big ballet. They've dumped a ton of money into this episode to push their products. Zima is the alcoholic beverage of choice for ballet dancers, right?
Sure. If not, we just made a very bold statement.
Yeah,
bold like the taste of Zima and tab.
Tab, that's right. Now give us our monies. Is Tab even a company anymore? Hell, is Zima even a company anymore?
I think they still are.
I haven't drank Zima since I was like 16, and we used to put Jolly Ranchers in them.
And dance and ballet.
Don't drink underage, kids. Wink, wink. We cut back to Homer sitting on the couch, and Lisa actually approaches him, and Homer explains that Daddy has some very important work to do. He's looking through the want ads to find a part-time job.
Dad, that's a gag paper we got at the carnival.
Oh, no wonder I didn't hear about Bart being elected world's greatest sex machine. I'm never gonna pay off this debt.
This whole scene I freaking love.
This is great. This is like some Simpson shit right here. That's just like, it doesn't make any sense, but it also is hilarious and fun.
I think it goes back to the Merkin stuff about it. It was too sitcom-y, so they had to have a Simpsons moment.
He wanted to throw something in there, yeah. But basically, we see on the TV an announcer, need money fast? Got no experience? Step up to elegance. Become a limo driver at Classy Joe's.
That's it. I'll make money with the chauffeur job. Good thing you turned on that TV, Lisa.
I didn't turn on the TV. I thought you turned it on.
Well, anyway, turn it off.
It is off. Dun dun dun. They actually play X-Files music there. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I 100% agree. They did not address this at all on the commentary, but I would not be surprised one bit if Merkin was just like, this isn't a Simpsons episode. Let's do something weird.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like, I might be my favorite little 20 seconds in the episode.
It's a really funny bit, and TV does have all of life's answers after all.
And all their mysteries.
Well, it's the day of the ballet performance, and Skinner is talking to Bart behind the curtain. You're going to have to work hard to win this crowd over. Most of them are here as part of detention.
Pretty big crowd.
Mm-hmm. We've even busted in troublemakers from other schools. Why would you like what? That's the like really strong punishment right there.
Oh, Skinner's gonna get him.
As the music starts, we see a female dancer performing solo on stage, but within just a few moments, Bart puts a mask on and joins her. Lisa and many others from the audience are instantly impressed. It's really funny, though, because it's Lisa, Jimbo, and Nelson who are all just blown away by the beauty and grace. Lisa says, that spiky-haired masked dancer is really something. I wonder who he is. And then we actually hear some insight from Jimbo.
He's graceful, yet masculine, so it's okay for me to enjoy this.
And finally, Nelson even gets a little bit philosophical.
This reminds me of the movie Fame, and to a lesser extent, the TV series, which was also called Fame.
For what it's worth, Fame was a movie made in the 1980s about a group of teens trying to make it at a performance art school. They deal with a whole lot of very extreme issues amongst their group, and in 1982, just a few years later, they attempted to make a television series out of that movie's idea, though it didn't seem like the series went over as well as the movie did.
They remade the movie in like the mid to late 2000s, if I remember correctly.
I think you might be thinking of Rent.
Nope.
Oh, really?
I worked at Blockbuster, so I saw
Fair.
people come in complaining about it all the time.
Fair. I did not even find a remake on IMDb, but I could have easily looked over it. But either way, the point of this is Jimbo and Nelson really, probably arguably should not really know of these movies or shows, or anything about ballet for that matter.
Yeah, it's a very obscure reference, but it's something they should have no business knowing.
And it'll get even more obscure and weirder later, but for now we're going to cut over to Homer at his new part-time job as a chauffeur at Classy Joe's. And his first client is our second big guest star of the episode. They actually got Mel Brooks on the show as himself. Oh, wow! I can't believe my very first passenger is comedy legend Mel Brooks. I love that movie, Young Frankenstein. Scared the hell out of me.
Thanks.
I love Mel Brooks has no idea how to respond here. And immediately Homer is trying to get him to do bits. He's like, let's do that 2,000-pound man thing. I'll be that Carl Reiner guy, and you be what's-his-face.
Homer, it's not that easy. It takes the genius of Carl Reiner and the rhythm and the timing that only he and I...
Sir, today every country has a national anthem. Did they have national anthems 2,000 years ago?
Sure, we had. Of course, we were caves, but every cave had a national anthem. I'll never forget that my cave's national anthem was...
What was that? National anthem?
Let 'em all go to hell except Cave 76.
And unfortunately, this is broken up when we see police sirens, and it's actually Police Chief Wiggum pulling them over. But real quick, before we get into that interaction, I just want to talk a little bit about how Mel Brooks came to be on the show. You may recall a few episodes back, we reviewed Fear of Flying, which guest starred Anne Bancroft, who I've already mentioned on this podcast a little bit earlier.
Name drop.
Well, Anne Bancroft is married to Mel Brooks, and when she got the part as the therapist in Fear of Flying, Mel Brooks actually joined her on set. Merkin talks a little bit about this on the commentary, and he does so very respectfully, though I think you could say that he was maybe in real time possibly a little annoyed by this interaction, because as Merkin was trying to direct Anne Bancroft, Mel Brooks was also trying to direct Anne Bancroft. However, Merkin said it was fine as long as he got to show up to Mel Brooks' next movie and do the same thing. Though, really, during this interaction, David Merkin realized what was happening, and that's that Mel Brooks was actually really into The Simpsons, and he wanted to be a part of it himself. And it just took David Merkin figuring that out, and then when he asked him, Mel Brooks lit up and was ecstatic at the idea. He very much wanted to do the show, and I think he just wanted to be asked. So, very cool that Merkin was perceptive enough to figure that out, and that's how this whole scene came to be.
I almost wish they had like a role where he got to be in the episode for the full time, just because, I mean, I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan. I think he's hilarious. Most of his movies you will thoroughly enjoy from start to finish. So that's awesome that he's such a huge fan of the show.
Well, and I think it's clear that all of the Simpsons staff is also, writers included, was a huge fan of Mel Brooks' work and him himself. And Matt Groening on the commentary remembered how honored, he specifically said he was honored that he wanted to do The Simpsons.
So that's got to feel really cool when someone reaches out wanting to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially a big name like that, or a legend even like that. But unfortunately, Homer is being pulled over even though he's got this legend in tow. And I love Wiggum here. He's like, you got a short and your tail light started blinking when you made that turn. Let's see a chauffeur's license.
Chauffeur's license, eh? Mel, buckle your borscht belt.
Homer floors it, but Wiggum points out, since you're trying to make a getaway in park, I'm guessing you don't have a license. Better head down to the DMV. These two broads will help you out. Of course, the two broads...
My neighbors are coming to see if I'm okay.
Of course, the two broads that are willing to help him out are none other than Patty and Selma, who we know works at the DMV. Mel Brooks is in the back just upset because he just needs to get to where he's going at the airport. And I love Wiggum just immediately starts trying to get him to do the exact same bit from a moment ago. Only this time he tells Mel Brooks, you be Carl Reiner and I'll be Police Chief Wiggum.
Listen, why don't you play Carl Reiner and let me play Police Chief Wiggum? I hate Carl Reiner. I want to know why Wiggum has a picture of Patty and Selma on hand.
Yeah, that is actually very interesting. I guess maybe he refers a lot of people to the DMV?
But it was like a genuine picture of them, though. It wasn't like a business card or... It's like they gave him...
True.
It's like they gave him actor... what are they called? Headshots or something.
Yeah, I guess it could have been. I don't know. Honestly, that is very weird.
Brings up even more questions. That Wiggum.
So we cut back to the ballet performance, and everything is going so well. In fact, Jimbo is now weeping in the audience. I haven't been moved like this since the Joy Luck Club, which is a movie reference that Jimbo has absolutely no business knowing. The Joy Luck Club came out in 1993, and it's the life histories of 4 Asian women and their daughters that reflect and guide each other, and it's a vignette story. So, again, this is not something that you would expect Jimbo to have any knowledge of whatsoever.
But this episode is about gender issues, so...
That's true. It's very, very true, but I just love it. It hasn't moved him, or this ballet is moving him just like that movie did. Bart, we start hearing his internal thoughts on stage as he's starting to realize he's being adored by the crowd.
They love me. I'm accepted. I don't need this mask anymore. Behold! The masked dancer is me, Bart! It is I who have won your claim.
Bart does ballet!
He dances like girls!
Ha ha!
Go ahead and laugh. But I took a chance and did something I wanted to do. And if that makes me a sissy, well then, I guess I'm a sissy.
He's a sissy! Let's rush him!
It's like he was gonna get off the hook until he declared himself a sissy.
Yeah, it's true. He kind of put that on himself, didn't he?
I like that the performance for the ballet said the T is silent, which is why I was saying ballet the whole first half of our episode.
Wouldn't it just be ball at that point, or ballet?
I don't know. But if no. Oh, I hate you, Miles.
Well, the kids do, in fact, rush Bart. They chase him down, and he's just barely managing to get him away. He's running across a field, and we sort of get a Star Wars moment here, where Bart's teacher, Susan Sarandon, starts telling Bart, use the ballet! Leap! Leap like you've never left before!
Well, he's trying to jump over this little chasm that's in the ground.
Yeah,
so,
and it doesn't look like he'll be able to make it, but maybe with the power of ballet, just maybe, he'll be able to clear it. Unfortunately, no, though, he doesn't, and he actually takes a really bad spill. Nelson actually starts to poke him with a stick, and I love this line. This is probably what I will declare as my favorite line in the episode.
Well, as long as he's hurt.
I love that so much. The job's done for him, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I want to point out real quick another brilliant piece of advice. This is from David Merkin, but I totally endorse this. And that's basically, overall, if you had to pick one theme, one reoccurring lesson that we learned from The Simpsons week after week, in and out, every single time, it's that one simply should not try. Trying always ends up in disaster. We even have the famous quote by Homer, of course, that the first step towards failure is trying. And again, like father, like son, Bart tried to better himself. He tried to add some culture to his life. He tried to do something outside the box, and it ultimately ended with him beaten and broken in the middle of a ravine.
It's almost like there's some kind of natural, reoccurring resets that must have happened.
I love that, speaking of reset, because we haven't got there yet, but Lisa actually tells her brother that she's proud of him, and she's proud of the fact that he showed a sensitive side, and that's never going to be erased. From this day forward, they're kindred spirits. And she actually gives him a kiss on the cheek before walking off.
Why did she just leave me here when I clearly need medical attention?
It is not Unbreakable Bart.
Nope.
So, we pretty much wrapped up our B plot at this point, but there's still a lot left with our A plot. We have Homer at the DMV, which I'll point out that is Hans Moleman always at the DMV waiting in line?
It seems like it.
Every single time we see the DMV, he's always in line. Maybe he has a crush on Patty and Selma.
Maybe he does, but he also needs his driver's license to move big cargo trucks and stuff like that, because he's driving those occasionally, so he's got to stay up on all his license.
True.
Maybe he's got multiple cars that need new stickers.
But all Homer is worried about is the idea that he thinks God is teasing him, just like that Moses guy in the desert.
Or there are mole men, so it's each time a different one.
Oh, that could be. That goes back into a previous theory. But back with Homer, we see that he is standing in line, and all he can think is, sometimes I think God is teasing me, just like he teased Moses in the desert.
Tested, Homer. God tested Moses. And try to be nice to my sisters. It's very hard on me to have you fighting all the time.
Oh, okay, Marge. I'll get along with them. Then I'll hug some snakes. Yes, then I'll hug and kiss some poisonous snakes. Now that's sarcasm.
By the way, I love the Moses line. It's again Homer stupidly being outsmarting of everyone else. He teased Moses in the desert. It's like, no. He wasn't teasing him the whole time, leading him for 40 years on a route that he'll never achieve. He's testing him.
Well, and that's not the only test that Homer's going through today, and he's going to have to take his driving test with Patty and Selma, who already openly dislike them, and they're relishing in the idea that they're able to hold yet another thing over his head. Immediately you can tell this is not going to be fair when we see him losing points for not adjusting the side mirror and for failing to check a blind spot.
Minus 2 points.
Homer is feeling frustrated, and he finally declares, "You won't be happy until my family thinks I'm a loser, will you?"
You are a loser, Homer, and we're winners. You gotta learn that.
Oh, seatbelt twisted. Minus 1 point.
Nagging the driver, minus 10 points for you.
Raised a cone, minus 5 points.
Being a jerk, minus 1,000,000 points. Which, how many driving tests are there where there's 2 people auditing you while you drive?
None that I know of, other than this one.
They should get in trouble just for that alone.
Well, and sadly, the driving test didn't go well, but it seems like the written exam is also not really going Homer's way. One more wrong answer, and Homer flunks another of life's little tests. And what's this?
Oh, someone didn't fill in a circle all the way.
And this is where it just gets quite petty and sad, because Homer is obviously distraught, doing everything he can to help his family, and Patty and Selma, gleefully start stamping fail all over Homer's test. And in fact, they're so into this torment of Homer that they actually feel the need to light a couple of cigarettes.
They're getting off while they're doing that.
They really are. And that's when Marge walks up to see how Homer had done.
So, Homer, how'd you do?
Well,
Ladies, please don't tell me you're smoking in a government building, because that is precisely the kind of infraction that can cost a couple of sisters their promotion.
Patty and Selma immediately become uncomfortable. It's clearly their boss is getting onto them for smoking indoors, and Homer is actually starting to get a little bit of glee himself. He's kind of happy to see that these two are now struggling for once, but almost immediately he starts to realize that as joyful as this moment is for him, it's really disturbing to Marge, and it's very much upsetting her. And of course, there's nothing that Homer won't do for Marge, and he even sighs and says, "I'll never forgive myself for this," as he grabs both cigarettes at once and starts smoking them inside.
Wait a minute. Those are yours, sir?
Yes. I am in flavor country.
Both of them?
It's a big country.
Ladies, I apologize. And you, sir, are worse than Hitler. Slap!
I love how freely and quickly people are to throw around worse than Hitler. I mean, honestly. Maybe a bit of a stretch. Not that I also am a fan of people not smoking indoors. That's one of the reasons I like Dallas so much better than Fort Worth. But at the end of the day, it's definitely not Hitler levels of bad.
But close.
Yeah, of course. It's just a notch below. Just a notch. Patty and Selma are actually speechless that Homer just saved their hides.
Please, on top of everything else, don't make me picture your hides.
Marge is thrilled. What a wonderful thing he did for her sisters. But Homer explains, I didn't do it for them. I did it for you, Marge. I'd kill for you. Please ask me to kill for you.
No, homie. You see, this is the stuff I've been telling you about that you never see.
Homer, we're sorry.
If there's anything we can do to make it up...
Call off the debt!
Or say we could let
Call
you
off the debt?
Well...
Debt's off. Let's go, Marge.
Homer gets off so easy.
Well, this is honestly one of my favorite moments of this episode, just because it's probably the fastest Simpsons reset we've had to date. The entire reset happens in like the last 3 seconds of the episode. They've done similar quick shots like this before, but this one just feels so fast, and it's so funny.
And he doesn't owe any money, and they never bring it up again.
Yeah, that's the end of it. You're absolutely right. And speaking of the end of it, that is the end of Homer versus Patty and Selma. Rich, was there anything else that you or that book of yours wanted to point out before we get out of here?
My guidebook, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, points out that Patty and Selma still have the little pyramid lamp they have from when they went to their Egypt trips back in the episode Principal Charming when they're showing the slideshows. So I thought that was cool that they had that intertwined back in. But other than that, like we talked about at the top of this episode, did not remember the ballet being a part of this particular storyline, but like we've discussed in depth, you can definitely see why they needed a longer B story for this episode. The A story would have flown by so quick without it.
Or it would have got really awkward if they just had Homer doing more and more subservient things for Patty and Selma, because it's funny the way they did it,
overdone.
But it could have been overdone. I agree. Yeah, totally.
And the whole thing with the gender issues, and it was interesting having it from the guy side, although we have enough guy story in all of society these days, but seeing the gender issues where it was not Lisa trying to join the hockey team, but it's like, what are the ramifications for Bart dancing, basically?
Doing something quote-unquote girly.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. You had mentioned the episode Principal Charming, which there's a connection to here. I wanted to point out that we actually mentioned it in that episode when we reviewed it a few seasons back, but that was directed by Mark Kirkland, who is also the director of this episode, and Mark Kirkland has said that he absolutely loves exploring the Bouvier family, and that's why he was excited to jump onto this script that was heavily featuring Patty and Selma, who we don't see nearly as often as some of the other characters, and he's very drawn to working with them. So this is the second big episode by Mark Kirkland to heavily feature the Bouvier family.
The Bouvier historian, if you will.
There you go. And Richie, I know how much you love to hear stories from the director's commentary, specifically dealing with Dave Merkin and the voice direction of some of the actors. I mentioned I had another story to tell about Susan Sarandon, and that was a little bit about how her recording session went, which had a bit of a rough start. You see, she actually recorded her lines in a studio in New York. I had mentioned she had her children in tow, and the day the Simpsons had sent a car to go pick her up for her recording session happened to be a historic traffic jam in New York on that day. So she ended up being very, very late, just stuck in traffic with nothing that they could do. They were just sitting in the car. Before cell phones, just stuck. And to make it worse, somehow there was a miscommunication, and they actually took her to the wrong studio. So after waiting in traffic, she had to get back in the car and then go continue in traffic to get across to where they were actually set up to record. Dave Merkin talks about this experience and says that when she arrived, she was notably flustered. You could see it in her face that she was angry and annoyed, and who wouldn't be after that experience? Yeah. Hours late at this point, wanting to, come in and do this, but David Merkin talked about this moment that she just kind of walked away into a corner for a second, kind of wiped her face, and it was like she came back as a new person, instantly in professional mode. She had worked very hard on the accent to perfect it just the way they wanted it to be, and she delivered an absolutely wonderful, energetic performance, and you would have never been able to tell that she was having a frustrating day based on the way she delivered her lines.
It's a very difficult thing to do, to emotionally shut yourself off from that feeling and act like it didn't happen. The quote-unquote, don't take it into work with you aspect.
Leave it at the door, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Susan Sarandon was quite the professional that day.
That's very awesome.
But that will do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review show.
Fame was remade in 2009.
Perfect. So that will do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review show. Before we get out of here, Rich, where can they follow you online?
They can follow me as fast as they can keep up with me. I am just tweeting left and right nonstop every day at theWiz_Kid23.
If you think he tweets a lot, you should check out his Instagram.
Oh yeah, we've just had like 85 calendar uploads here a few days ago.
Not on yours, sir. I don't think you've ever touched yours.
I touch mine daily, Miles, okay? I just want to throw that out there. Oh, wait, we're talking about Instagram? Never mind. I made a sex joke. Let's move on. And Miles, who continually updates the show's Twitter feed nonstop for real, you can follow that at BestDarnDiddly. That's DIDDLY.
And when I'm not tweeting on that account, you'll sometimes find me tweeting from my personal account at MrMostDaysOff, both on Twitter and Instagram. Also, give our show a follow on YouTube. We could definitely use the subscribers, so we'd really appreciate you helping out with that. theWizKid and I look forward with being back with you again next week, where we're going to be reviewing a very special episode, and we're going to be having a very special guest joining us for the show. It's A Star is Burns, and joining us, Simpsons writer, author of Springfield Confidential, and creator of The Critic, Mike Reese.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun. Make sure you guys come back to Flavor Country.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Hey, this is the Toph, host of the Gravity Beard Podcast, a variety show with interviews and discussions on a wide range of topics. Our guests have included a viral YouTube star, a former child actor. We've even had a guy on who may have solved the D.B. Cooper case. It's a delicious box of audio chocolate. You never know what you'll get. Find it on Podbean, iTunes, and other places you listen to podcasts. It's the Gravity Beard Podcast. It's what your ears will want to be listening to.